I was sitting on my bed in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, Airbnb, and I didn't have a laptop open, and I had no meetings scheduled, and no one was waiting for me. I really couldn't remember the last time I had ever been in that situation. In this video, I want to tell you what actually happens when you quit or stop working a job. Not the Instagram version. I mean the real version. What rest felt like and what it revealed. And then the three things that that time in Mexico taught me about money that 7 years of working never did. So stay with me, please. My name's April, and if you watch my last video or my first video, you'll know that I took a 30-day break from my cybersecurity job in March 2024. But what I didn't cover is what happened next, because that's the part that actually changed everything. My manager had offered me 30 paid days, a sabbatical. Now, I had never heard of a sabbatical for anyone outside of a professor, but I discovered it through some content creators, namely Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow. They are both living and working abroad, and that's where I came to understand that that type of time off could be had even if you weren't a professor, you know? Now, my company didn't officially offer sabbaticals, but somehow, magically, I got one anyway. So, what I did, I went to Mexico. Now, here's the part nobody tells you about what stopping or um, taking a break actually feels like. Now, that first week, and as I mentioned in that video, I did wake up when I felt like it, and I went to bed when I felt like it. But outside of that, I did feel like I was wasting time. My brain kept telling me, "What are you doing? You need to be productive. You need to be doing something." I mean, if you're not working, what and who are you, April? So that was something that just it didn't that thing in my brain did not switch off. The work concept, the work idea of working all the time. Just because I bought a ticket, a plane ticket, it did not immediately switch off. So what I did need to do, because I knew that I had to do something to help relieve myself of that constant talk, that inner talk that was telling me, do something, be productive. So I knew I had done some practices in the past, but I had not been doing them of late, but I knew that they had value. And so those are practices, specifically meditation and yoga. And now, mind you, I didn't like go full board in every single day, all day long, and nothing like that. It wasn't anything dramatic like that. I would just do a meditation, get on YouTube and find a guided meditation, maybe 15, 20 minutes in the mornings. Some mornings, like I said, I didn't go crazy. Some mornings I would play that YouTube video, and doing that, and then also on days, because there was also a yoga mat that was there in the Airbnb. and I would do some, yoga. One of my friends was a virtual yoga teacher, and so I did a session while I was there, and I tell you, just those, few sessions of those practices, it made a difference. It helped to quiet my mind and not be thinking about work. That anxiety began to lessen and be more and more relieved. So, through both of those practices, like I said, that really did help me um, to to quiet my mind. So now I remember by having this, creating this quiet in my mind, it helped me to be able to think more clearly, which I needed. I had mentioned before that um, I had a lot of stress headaches on the job. And I don't know exactly when this occurred because I didn't note it that I wasn't after, doing these types of practices and having this time off. I don't exactly remember when they stopped, but I know that I stopped having these stress headaches like I had had. And then that anxiety that I had been feeling, it just lessened, in time. Now, I felt and I knew that for the first time in many years, I felt like just April, a just a person, not a not just a worker, not a checkbox on somebody's list. It was just me, and I felt like this is me, and I feel good and relaxed and at peace, and this is how I wanted to continue to feel. Now, when we talk about that, by doing that, something did happen and change within me. Beyond those practices, I also began to watch YouTube videos. Now, I'm big on YouTube videos. I've been watching them for many, many years, but specifically, I was watching those for content creators, specifically women who were running their own businesses, able to earn money in various ways, not through a job, consistently and without working 45 hours a week for somebody else. And it made me understand, and I felt that, I had spent so many years convincing myself that working for an employer was the safe option or the guaranteed option. But that belief was the reason I had stayed on that job for so long, longer than I needed to, longer than what made sense, right? But by watching these women, I was able to see the situation clearly for, the first time. Specifically, that an employer doesn't guarantee your income. Because, they can decide to, restructure, conduct layoffs. They can just decide they wanna go in another direction, and you are out, you are fired, and they can do that, especially at these work at will, locations or states. The guarantee of income was never coming from an employer. It was always going to have to come from here, from me, not from the employer. So before I went on my sabbatical, I believe that money came from wherever my employer decided to give it, from a place that was based on the employer only. But after the sabbatical, I realized that money can come from wherever I choose for it to come from. Now, here's what I want you to hear in this, because this isn't just my story. If you're in a job that's draining you, or in retirement, anxious about whether you have enough to survive, the belief that your income has to come from one source, one employer, one entity, I'm going to tell you that that belief is not necessarily true. You didn't choose that consciously. Society handed that to you, handed it to us. I mean, our Western culture has taught us that being an employee is the only way. That's the way it's been framed for the vast majority of us. And by the fact that nobody around you was doing it differently, or very few, in comparison, we're doing it in a different way. But it is not the truth. It's not true. And it's not the only way. Now, here is what that time in Mexico actually taught me. 3 lessons. One is that rest is not the absence of productivity. It's where clarity lives. Now, I couldn't see what I actually wanted until I stopped working long enough to hear myself, stop moving, stop performing until I could really hear what was going on and what I needed. My headaches disappeared, as I mentioned to you before. My anxiety, it lessened because I had finally been able to find a way to get quiet and still so that I can so that I can see more clearly. Okay. Lesson 2, 40 hours a week is not required to live and support yourself. It's just not. I mean, for 1 month, I worked 0 hours and I was still able to live fully and freely. I mean, that does something for you. It did something for me. My brain was being rewired during that time of what is actually necessary in order to live. And then the third lesson was that the opposite of burnout is not just rest. It's a completely different relationship on how you earn. I mean, burnout is not just about being overwhelmed and excessively tired, but psychologically, it's a feeling of being stuck, uh, and that you can't leave because this is the only place where or that will support you financially. Now, that particular month showed me that I couldn't go back to the same with the same approach. Working at full speed and full volume, full capacity, you know, eh, in that particular role. I just couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do that, or else I'd end up in the same position, burnt out, overwhelmed, and just ready to run away, leave. It showed me, that time in Mexico showed me how I wanted to move forward, that I wanted to do so more slowly, more thoughtfully, from a place of calm rather than of urgency. So I started to ask myself, is there a way to earn income that actually matches who I am? Someone who needs to think things through slowly, to ponder, to move from a place of rest and clear sightedness rather than from pressure and speed. So that question is where calm income came from and where it was born. So here's the question for you. If money didn't have to come from one place, from one employer, from one entity, where would you choose for it to come from? Drop it in the comments below. So if this video resonated with you, please subscribe because there's so much more where this came from. Bye and take care.